Hi everyone, and welcome back to Vlogmas. My name is Leslie. I am Knit California here on YouTube and also over on Instagram and TikTok. And in today's video for Vlogmas Day 2, we're talking about my knitting journal. I've been keeping this knitting journal actually for a year now. I started it back in December of 2022. It was one of my goals to journal more regularly. December. Journal more regularly in the new year, but I couldn't get the idea out of my head about wanting to start it when I first thought about it in December. So I actually started this mid-December. It was really weird to not start at the beginning of the year for me, but it really helped me get into the practice and keep it going. This did start as a life journal in conjunction with a knitting journal through the beginning of 2023, but at this point now it has pretty much fully transitioned into just a knitting journal. And I have talked about this knitting journal on the channel and in vlogs multiple times, and every time I've talked about it there's inevitably a comment can you show us how you set up your knitting journal? And I always say yes, and I have never made a video about it. So here it finally is. In today's video I'm going to it's sort of a vlog, sort of a talking vlog, but I'm going to be closing out my month of November in my journal and setting up my month of December so you can see what that process looks like. I am also planning on filming a whole separate video, I don't know if it'll come out next week or the week after, on setting up my new 2024 knitting journal. So I'm going to set it up in a slightly different way to how the journal is set up now. So if you are looking to set up, how many times did I just say set up? If you're looking to set up your own new 2024 knitting journal, that might be the video for you. But I hope you can at least get some inspiration from today's video. So let's get into it. Let's start with closing out the month of November. First, I'm double checking that my calendar page is complete, which it is. Now I'm tallying up my knits wear page to see which of my hand knits I wore this month and how many times I wore each of them. Then I total them up and calculate the percentage of days I wore a knit in the month of November. More on this in a bit. My socials page was pretty much up to date, nothing needed there. And in my yarn stash section, I like to calculate the net increase or net decrease of skeins into / out of my stash. This November I was actually net negative at -7 skeins, and I'm ending November with 424 skeins in my stash. Yes, it's a lot. No, I'm not worried about it. Now I'm going to start creating my pages for December. First is the calendar page. I use this as a calendar for the month, and I also use it to write down one thing that happened each day, kind of like what defined that day for me. I try to keep it a positive activity that happened, but sometimes you just have a bad day, and that's how it needs to be remembered. This calendar page is the one that takes me the longest to set up, so while I'm getting this done, let me tell you about the tools I use on my journal. Each of these will be linked in the description box down below if you're interested in checking them out. First, the journal itself is one I got from Amazon. I don't think I pronounced it correctly, but it's the Lecterm 1917. I like this one because it has a hardcover and dot grids on the inside pages. A solid grid paper could be useful too, but I really like the dots. Next is a ruler. I've had this one since elementary school, and I'm sure you have your own ruler at home. I also use a pencil to draft out titles or new pages, and a good pen for all of my daily notes. The pens I use for outlining and what I'm using to create these boxes right now are called the Pigma Microns. The set I got comes with about 10 pens in all different tip thicknesses. The colored markers / highlighters that I use are called mild liners, and they are double pointed with a highlighter tip on one side and a fine marker-like tip on the other side. They also come in about a pack of 12 different colors. Again, I purchased all of these from Amazon and they are linked in the description box down below if you're interested in checking them out. After the calendar come my knitting specific pages. These have definitely evolved over the year, but I'm really happy with where they are now. The first knitting page is my knits wear page, where I track daily if I'm wearing any finished objects. I found last year that I was not wearing my knits as much as I wanted to, so starting to track this was an easy and motivating way for me to try to wear my sweaters more often, and now it has become an interesting data collection process. Living in Southern California, there are days and months where it's just not practicable to wear knitwear, especially woolly knitwear. And now I have data from the spring and summer months, really throughout the whole year, to see what I was wearing. I can use this info to help me decide what to knit during those months next year. I'm going to be making a whole video on this in the new year once I have a full year's worth of info on what I wore, so stay tuned for that. I really think it'll be a fun one. The next page is my socials. Not everyone may need this page, but I've found it super helpful to track my brand partnerships and what I need to complete each month to meet brand requirements. I also use this page to keep notes on any ideas I have for Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube content. Next, I have my monthly and weekly snapshots. On this monthly knitting page, I keep track of any ongoing projects that are rolling over from previous months, including any languishing whips, any new projects that I've started, and any projects finished. I also have a small section for my queue, or projects I think I might want to make, or any yarn that I really want to use ASAP this month. Also on this page is where I track all the yarn I have coming into my stash and yarn leaving my stash, either through new projects I've started or destashing. I also have a Google Sheet version of my yarn stash, so I just use this handwritten monthly tracker to make sure everything aligns and gets added to my digital stash tracker. The next page is my weekly snapshot, and this is what I use to track what I want to work on specifically each week. I typically fill this out 1 week at a time, and it's definitely a live document. Some weeks I finish everything and more and keep adding to the week as I work on things. Some weeks I don't finish anything on the list, and that's okay. Those items just usually get moved to the next week. Finally, at the back of my journal, I keep a running list of all projects started and finished this year, so I can see them all on one page. You can see that I ran out of room and needed to add a second page. I'll definitely make sure to leave room in next year's journal so this doesn't happen again. I love keeping track of my knitting projects and progress through this journal. I have already used it to go back and look at notes from previous projects. It helps me keep track of everything I need to add to my Ravelry project pages, and I like having the freedom to write any notes I want in this notebook format. And yes, I hand draw each of these pages every month like you saw, which has started to get a bit repetitive and time consuming, but it's worth it for me to have the flexibility to change the format when I feel like it. I just put on a long YouTube knitting podcast and get out my markers and get to work at the beginning of each month. Yes, it's the next day when I'm filming this ending, but as you can see, I absolutely love keeping track of all of my knitting projects and statistics and everything in this journal. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a better understanding of what I put in my knitting journal. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I've got my brand new notebook for 2024, and I'm going to be setting some things up a little bit differently. I have a bunch of pages that I want to, like yearly pages and things I want to track throughout the whole year that I'm going to be putting at the beginning of my notebook, and I might be setting up each of my monthly pages a little bit differently as well. So that'll either be coming next week or the week after, and I hope if you're interested in setting up your own knitting journal, you can take some inspiration away from this. I also wanted to say that, like, this is not the end-all be-all of like setting up a knitting journal. If you want to set it up in a completely different way, like, that's fine, go for it. You don't need to copy what I'm doing here. I simply want to show you in case you're interested and so you can take some inspiration away. Alright, that is it. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!
Thank you.